The NBA is a young man's game. There's no doubt about that. While young players rise, unfortunately, our beloved vets find themselves moving deeper and deeper into the benches of their own teams without much, or if any, playing time. All to make room for the up-and-coming young guys where coaching staff see players gushing with potential. New talent pushes them slowly to retirement, or the vets game doesn't translate to today's style of play, or sometimes injuries have derailed their career and the best years are behind the veteran. It happens to the best of them. After all, Father Time is undefeated. Today, we will be diving into players who, unfortunately, have most likely seen their best playing days behind them. I would love for anyone on this list to prove me wrong. However, the eye test and numbers just simply don't lie. Now, before we jump into it, let me just say this is not about hating on anyone. I'm not trying to do a Skip Bayless impression. I'm just trying to have a conversation about players who I think might have regressed in the past few seasons. And starting at number 1, I got LeBron James.
Why do you hate LeBron?
I like LeBron.
You hate LeBron.
He's getting old. He's about to turn 40 this year. And Father Time is finally... Okay, I'm just kidding. You can't think I was actually being serious. LeBron James is one guy who has defeated Father Time. But like I was saying, this video is not to hate on anyone. Every great athlete, every great player eventually faces a decline at some point in their career. Today's NBA, with modern technology, sports science, player skill, and athleticism, a decline can take longer to come, but sometimes it is abrupt. So let's talk about these players who have fallen off a little bit throughout the last few seasons and why it's happening. First up, I got Khris Middleton. Middleton's potential decline from his peak can be attributed to a combination of factors including his age, changing of team dynamics with the addition of Dame, and the main reason I think he is due for some regression is the injuries that have piled up throughout his career. He was once a key piece for the Bucks championship roster, the guy on the team you want to take the last shot, but over the past few seasons he has shown some signs of regression. He's had a wrist surgery on his offhand, luckily, knee surgery to clean up lingering issues and soreness that had bothered him throughout the season and was thought to affect his performance, and then he sprained his left ankle the year after in the 2023-2024 season, causing him to miss 16 games, and the right ankle in the playoffs, but he played through that injury. And this past offseason, he had to have surgery on both of his ankles. Luckily, these ankle surgeries and knee surgeries are considered minor. However, at the end of the day, it's still a surgery and your body is getting cut open. No matter how minor it is, it's still considered serious in my eyes. Middleton is now 33 years old, which makes it harder for him to bounce back from injuries and surgeries of someone who was maybe like 10 years younger. And a player like Middleton, who relies on driving past defenders and more importantly getting lift off on his shots to shoot over defenders, could limit his effectiveness. His absence has been felt in the past few regular seasons, where his diminished play limited the Bucks and their ability to make a deep run. And when he returned, it became clear that he wasn't the same player that he was when he was a 3-time All-Star. Consistent setbacks due to injuries have interrupted his rhythm, conditioning, and playmaking, making it difficult for him to regain his All-Star self he once had. The Bucks saw Middleton's injury history with diminished play and went out and traded for a historically good player in Dame. They thought they needed another scoring option due to Middleton's injuries. This is expected to shift the offensive load away from Middleton. With Lillard's presence, that means more ball handling duties for the all-star point guard, reduced opportunities for Middleton to serve as the team's secondary playmaker and scorer. A key aspect you see in players who decline is their shooting efficiency dropping. During his prime, he was a knockdown shooter from the free throw line, mid-range, and three-point line, hitting over 40% of his three-point attempts in some seasons, and barely missing out on the elusive 50-40-90 club in the 2019-2020 season. Last year, he saw regression at the free throw line, and the year prior, he saw a down shooting year, especially at the three-point line. He was once a above-average defender. He could switch on to quicker point guards or use his frame to guard bigger wings. He has shown some signs of slowing down with slower lateral movement. However, at the same time, I'm going to credit him of being a solid defender. Still, he's not a negative on that end, but he's not what he once was, so that is a sign of regression in my eyes. But in my opinion, there is still hope for Khris Middleton. The surgeries he had done are considered minor as a surgery can be. And what really gives me hope for him is his playoff numbers from just the past year and the year prior. 2 years where he's dealt with injuries all year and missed games during the regular season and still performed well in the playoffs. In the 6 playoff games he played last year, Middleton averaged 25 points per game, 9 rebounds a game, and 5 assists, while maintaining his above average efficiency, what he has always been known for. This gives me hope that he's not totally washed and he has some juice in the tank. And if his ankle surgeries he got, for lack of better words, fixed him up, just maybe we'll see an all-star Cash Middleton once again. Next up, I got Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has always been, throughout his career, a player many teams want but don't necessarily want to pay. Of course, that's until the Sixers infamously chose to pay him over Jimmy Butler.
Tobias Harris over me?
And were stuck with him until his contract was up. Entering his 14th season, he's been on 5 different teams now, having 2 stints with the Pistons as well. Throughout his career, he's been considered a reliable scorer, and at his peak, he was having a 20-point per game season, on really good efficiency as well, and people were clamoring for him to be an all-star. I want to say how the mighty have fallen, but that might just be too much praise for Toby. Tobias at his peak was a player known to score in multiple ways, whether it was from mid-range, 3-point range, or drives to the basket. He was able to attack and score with good efficiency. Now, over the past few seasons, his scoring and efficiency has gone down. In the 2022-23 season, Tobias averaged just 14.7 points a game. This was his lowest since joining the Sixers. Then in the playoffs of the 2024 season, he took his game to an all-time low while with the Sixers. This officially was where the fans really started to turn on him and basically ran him out of town. In the 6 games in the playoffs last year, where Tobias played 36 minutes a game, he only averaged 9 points. And in the critical Game 6 winner go home, he dropped a big fat 0 for the Sixers. Completely unacceptable as a starter, playing that many minutes. We saw what happened with Ben Simmons and the Sixers fans, and Philly is ruthless. They were not going to accept this type of performance from a starter with a max contract. Fans also turned on Tobias at this point and unanimously agreed a 35-year-old Nick Batum had a better series coming off the bench for them.
Crypto, I got my tool in. 4th quarter yelling, why the fuck Batum in?
At the very least, Batum showed heart in the playoffs, and that's what really matters for the Sixers fans. If you ain't winning, you better be doing something. Moving on, he did have a reduced role the past few years, with players like Maxey coming onto the scene, and obviously they have Embiid on the team. Being the 3rd option on the Sixers should, in theory, allow him better looks within the offense and still get efficient buckets, which he was not able to do. He's always been a complementary player and does his best when he gets good looks and mismatches. With less of these opportunities because of his reduced role, he became less reliable and impactful. Another key factor contributing to Harris's decline is, while he is a well-rounded player, he lacks any one elite skill that allows him to stand out. This makes him one of the most average players in the NBA. He's good, but not a great scorer, rebounder, or defender. In today's NBA, where teams are increasingly relying on players with specialized skills, Harris' jack-of-all-trades approach makes him less valuable compared to some role players who can provide more definitive contributions such as 3-and-D, rim protection, things like that. This made it harder for the Sixers to decide how exactly they wanted to use him, and it also in turn made it difficult for Tobias to carve out a niche for himself in that offense. One of the main reasons Tobias was under major scrutiny was his large contract he signed with the Sixers in 2019. A 5-year, $180 million deal. Admittedly, he was a solid player for the Sixers. He never came close to living up to those expectations though, and no fault of his own. The Sixers were protecting an asset they traded for. The burden of that contract has made his decline even more noticeable, as fans and analysts expect more production for someone with a max level deal. Tobias is entering this NBA season at 32 years old. Like we mentioned earlier, he's never been elite at anything, so age is starting to catch up with him a little bit faster compared to other stars who have been at the peak of their game since entering the NBA, making the skills he's good at noticeably dip faster. And now in the Pistons, he has earned potentially his last big payday. He got a 2-year deal worth $26 million each year. A team like the Pistons can't afford to take a gamble on him because their books are clean right now and they can pay a vet who will help and is willing to help. His numbers off to the year, however, are rocky. He's shooting 25% from 3, can't buy a corner 3, while averaging under 14 points a game. As the 3rd option on a likely bad team, he should be much better. However, he does have plenty of time for these numbers to regress back to the mean, which I think will happen. Just like Middleton, I think there could still be hope for Tobias. He was on the Pistons before, and he's familiar with the city and the team where he was loved. He thrived here in the past, and this season offers him a fresh start. The Pistons, a young and developing team, likely brought him back with intentions of providing veteran leadership and scoring stability, which should translate to more offensive opportunities than he had with the Sixers. And being on Detroit, where there's way less media coverage, there should be way less pressure for him to be the top dog, max contract type of player he was with the Sixers. At the very least, he's going to bring veteran leadership to a young Pistons team, bringing his experience to help a team in crucial moments. And after all, he's always been a great locker room guy. Finally, I got Klay Thompson, arguably the 2nd best shooter in NBA history. It pains me to say as a Klay fan, but his best days are behind him. In recent years, his production has fluctuated due to a combination of injury and age. After suffering back-to-back devastating injuries, a torn ACL in 2019 and a ruptured Achilles in 2020, Thompson's performance hasn't quite returned to that level that made him a 5-time All-Star. Tearing an ACL is bad enough. It typically takes an athlete 2 years to return to form, and with modern sports science, players are now able to come back to full strength to what they were pre-injury. However, the Achilles injury in many ways is a career ender for a lot of explosive NBA athletes. We got Kobe, DeMarcus Cousins, Chauncey Billups, Brandon Jennings, Patrick Ewing, just to name a few athletes who tore their Achilles and never came back to close to what they were during their peaks, and really drove many of them to retirement. However, 2 players have in the past came back from this injury, one being Dominique Wilkins in the early 90s, and it took almost 30 years until we saw Kevin Durant tear his and come back to MVP level of play. If history is any indication, this does not bode well for Klay going forward. Now at 34 years old, Thompson is at the age where players exit the back end of their prime and start to regress. The physical toll of nearly a decade of deep playoff runs, combined with the grueling process of rehabbing from 2 major injuries, has taken away from some of his agility, quickness, and stamina that once defined his game. This has been especially noticeable on the defensive end, where Thompson, once an elite perimeter defender, now struggles to keep up with faster, younger guards and wings. His lateral movement has diminished, and his ability to stay in front of opposing scorers is no longer at the level it was when he was in his prime. At his peak, Thompson was one of the NBA's best two-way players, known not only for his shooting, but also his ability to lock down opposing guards and wings. He was often tasked with guarding the other team's best perimeter player, using his size, strength, length, and quick footwork to disrupt shots and prevent easy drives. This was critical for the Warriors, because Curry, being a little bit undersized and average defender at best while carrying the offensive load, like Klay Thompson, locked down the best guard on the opposing team, allowing Curry to cook. However, since returning from injury, he no longer has the same lateral quickness or agility to stay in front of faster players, and he struggles to defend elite guards and wings that he once did, becoming a liability on that end of the floor. And on offense, he's become a more inconsistent scorer. Depending on the day, you might get a prime Klay Thompson, or what's more typical these days, an inconsistent Klay who can't buy a bucket. While he's still capable of going off for big games, his efficiency has dipped in the recent seasons. In the 2022-23 season, Thompson shot 41% from 3, which is still very impressive, but he struggled in key moments such as the playoffs, where his shooting percentages often dropped. This was due to the defenses getting tighter and due to his injuries. It was harder for him to get the lift on his shots that he used to, or simply just get open. The Lakers series of 2023 is a perfect example of what type of Klay Thompson performances we get nowadays. Game 2, he shot 8 for 11 from 3 for 30 points, and then Game 6, the elimination game, he shot 3 for 19 for 8 points, being a plus-minus of -33, costing the Warriors the game. Last year in 2024, in a winner-go-home play-in game, he shot 0 for 10 for 0 points, ultimately being the last game as a Warrior. His start early to this year is not super promising yet. With Luka and Kyrie on the team, 2 great playmaking guards who take a lot of the burden on offense and opponents' top defensive assignments, he should be getting a lot of open looks. To start the year this year, he's averaging 14 points per game with 35% from 3, which is his lowest since his rookie year. Again, a lot of season left to improve on these numbers, and he still has to mesh with the team. Klay has been a warrior in every sense of the word. He put his body on the line for them, played through injuries for deep playoff runs, and won 4 rings because of this. He will never let you forget that either. Despite some challenges he has faced, he is one of the most respected players in the NBA. While he may not be the two-way force he once was, he can still deliver in key moments and catch fire like vintage Klay, and there's no one stopping that. In conclusion, Klay Thompson, Khris Middleton, and Tobias Harris are 3 respected players whose careers have experienced notable declines from their peaks, each for different reasons. I hope these players are able to play and compete at the level we've once seen them in the past. Fans everywhere would love to see them return to form and remind us of the players they once were. That's all from me. Thanks for watching.